Hello everyone, and welcome to the second video of our Blender series. In this video, we'll cover switching between modes, exploring selection modes, and exploring the important tools and options that can greatly enhance your workflow in edit mode. So without further delay, let's get started. If you want to switch between edit mode and object mode, you can do so from this menu. Click here and select either object mode or edit mode. You can also switch between modes using your keyboard. Simply press the Tab key to toggle between object mode and edit mode. The next part I want to mention is selection mode. In this mode, you can choose to select either vertices, edges, or faces. You can switch between these options by clicking on their respective icons or by pressing 1, 2, or 3 on your keyboard. Note that these numbers are not on the numpad, but on the number keys at the top of your keyboard. When you select Vertex mode, you can choose any of the object's corners, vertices. In Edge mode, you can select any edge of the object and you'll notice that the selected edge changes color. Finally, in Face mode, you can select any face of the object. To quickly switch between these modes, press 1, 2, or 3 on the top row of your keyboard. Next, let's talk about the available options. The tools up to add cube were covered and explained in our previous video. If you haven't watched it yet, please check it out on this channel before continuing. In this video, I'll begin with extrusion and cover the remaining tools. When you click on Extrude and hold the left mouse button, you'll see all the extrusion options: Extrude Region, Extrude Manifold, Extrude along normals, Extrude individual, and Extrude to cursor. For example, if you click on Extrude Region and select some faces, you can extrude them along any axis you choose. In this case, the normals are currently displayed on the cube. To hide the normals, click the small arrow icon, scroll down, and uncheck the normals option. Once deselected, the normals will no longer be shown. With the Extrude tool, you can extrude any edge. For example, I can select this edge and extrude it. You can also select and extrude any vertex as needed. If I want to undo an action, I press Ctrl-Z to revert to the original shape of the cube. To increase the number of undo steps, go to Edit Preferences System, and under Undo Steps, you can adjust the number of steps to your liking. This is helpful since we may need to undo multiple actions during editing. Once you've set the desired number of undo steps, close the menu. Now I'll press Ctrl-Z again to return the cube to its original shape and select the Selection tool. The second option in extrusion is Extrude Manifold. So what's the difference between this and Extrude Region? Let's compare them. First, I'll use Extrude Region. I extrude one face, then another, and bring one of the surfaces down. As I do this, the corners or four side walls of the cube are still present after the extrusion. Next, I press Ctrl-Z to undo the changes and switch to Extrude Manifold. This time, when I bring the surface down, those corner walls are no longer created. The same happens with other surfaces. There are no extra walls like before. Finally, I press Ctrl-Z again to return the cube to its original shape. Press the Extrude option, and then select Extrude along normals. With this tool, you can extrude multiple faces at once. For example, I'll select one face and another, then extrude them. You'll notice that the extrusion follows the center line of the selected faces. However, it may look uneven or sloped. To correct this, enable the Offset Even option. Once activated, the extrusion will appear even and without any slope. We'll go into more detail about these options in future videos. If the menu is not visible, click the small arrow icon to expand it. You can collapse the menu the same way by clicking the arrow again. Switch to Object Mode by pressing the Tab key. Next, select the object, press X on your keyboard, and choose Delete. The object will be removed. Now go to Add Mesh and add a new cube. Press the Tab key again to return to Edit mode. Another option under Extrude is Extrude Individual. So what does this do? Let me demonstrate. I'll select two faces and extrude them. When I use Extrude Individual, each face is extruded separately, creating two distinct extrusions. If I press Ctrl-Z to undo and switch to Extrude along normals, then extrude again, the two faces will be extruded together as a single, connected surface. Now I press Ctrl-Z again and return to Extrude Individual. This time, each face is extruded in its own direction, without being connected to the other. The next option is Extrude to Cursor. Before using this tool, let me first extrude the cube slightly. Now I have selected a face and want to use the Extrude to Cursor option. So how does it work? After selecting this tool, click anywhere on your screen and the extrusion will be created towards the position of your cursor. You can also apply this tool to edges and vertices for similar results. The next option is Inset Faces. This tool creates a new face within an existing face. Let me demonstrate. I'll select this face, and within it, I want to create another face. After selecting the Inset Faces tool, move your mouse to adjust the inset, and you'll see the new face appear. If you're unable to adjust the inset by moving your mouse, click the Inset Faces settings in the bottom left corner. Here, you can manually increase or decrease the values to control the inset, and the changes will be applied to the surface. Now if I view the cube from the side, you'll see that the new surface is within the original surface. By adjusting the depth value, the inset surface can either extend outward from the cube or sink inward. I'm not going to talk about shortcuts here, as I already covered them in my previous video. You'll naturally learn them as you work in Blender. For example, the shortcut for Inset Faces is I. You can also discover shortcuts by hovering over a tool and waiting a moment. Blender will display the shortcut for that tool. For instance, the shortcut for extrusion is E, as indicated at the end of the tool's description. You can learn more about shortcuts by reading tooltips or watching my previous video, where I explained them in detail. The next option is Bevel, which is used for beveling or chamfering edges and corners. When I select the Bevel tool, switch to Selection mode, and select a face, I can adjust the bevel by moving the mouse up or down. This allows me to chamfer the corners of the selected surface. You can increase the number of steps here, to create a smoother bevel. Additionally, you can adjust the width of the bevel or chamfer. You also have the option to control whether the shape is concave or convex by modifying the profile settings. With the bevel option, you can select corners or edges. For example, if I select this edge and move the mouse, you'll see that I can create a chamfer. You can also adjust the number of segments, steps, and the bevel width. Additionally, you can control whether the bevel is concave or convex by modifying the profile settings. You can also use a shortcut for the Bevel tool. The shortcut is Ctrl-B. For instance, after selecting an edge, I press Ctrl-B and move the mouse to adjust the bevel or chamfer in real time. When you scroll the mouse wheel, it increases the number of segments for the bevel. You can use this feature while using the shortcut. If you're not using shortcuts, you can adjust the segments from the menu located at the bottom left corner of the screen, where you can increase or decrease the values as needed. Another feature of the Bevel tool is that you can bevel vertices. First, select Vertex mode from the top menu. Then switch to Selection mode and select a vertex. If you try to bevel and nothing happens, it's likely because the vertex option was not properly selected from the top menu. Once you select Vertex mode from the top menu, you'll be able to move the mouse and see the corners beveling. Even if you haven't selected the Vertex option from the menu at the bottom left corner, beveling will still work if you have Vertex mode enabled from the top menu. Select a corner, move the mouse, and you'll see the vertex or corner being beveled. It's important to select Vertex mode from the top menu when working with vertices. Once you select a corner, for example this corner, you can apply the bevel and adjust the settings. You can increase the number of segments, adjust the width, and control whether the bevel is convex or concave. Additionally, you can modify these properties to refine the model. Another option is loop cut. When you hold down the tool icon, you'll see two options, loop cut and offset edge loop cut. Start by selecting loop cut. This tool allows you to create a cut across the entire object. When you hover over the object, a yellow loop line appears. Before clicking, press and hold the left mouse button to move the loop cut to your desired position. To confirm the cut, click the left mouse button. If you want to add multiple cuts, click on the small menu in the bottom left corner, where you can increase the number of loop cuts. The second option is offset edge loop cut. This tool allows you to offset the position of a loop cut relative to the previous cut. If you already have a loop cut, select Offset Edge Loop Cut, then press the left mouse button. You'll see the new loop offset from the last loop in your model. Another feature of the Offset Edge Loop Cut is that you can add multiple cuts using the Ctrl-R shortcut. Before clicking the left mouse button, you can increase the number of cuts by scrolling the mouse wheel. This allows you to quickly add multiple loop cuts while in offset edge loop cut mode by simply scrolling. Next, I want to show you how to select an entire loop cut. For example, if I try to select a single loop, it won't select the entire loop, it only selects individual edges. To select the full loop, you need to press Alt while clicking on the loop. If it's still not working, there may be a setting issue. To fix this, go to Edit Preferences, then navigate to Input. Make sure to uncheck the Emulate 3-button mouse option. Once you've done that, close the Preferences window. Now press Alt on your keyboard and click to select the entire loop. This allows you to select a complete loop around the model. As you can see, the entire loop has been successfully selected. You can also select a ring of loops. To do this, press Ctrl-Alt and click on any edge. This will select the entire ring. As you can see in this model, the entire ring has been selected. For selecting only a loop, press Alt and click on the loop. For a ring selection, press Ctrl-Alt, and the ring will be selected. Next up is the knife tool. When you click and hold the tool icon with the left mouse button, you'll see two options, knife and bisect. With the knife tool selected, you can click on any point on the object to create a cut. Press Enter to apply the cut. Once the surface is cut, you can manipulate or modify the area as needed. The next option is bisect. Before using it, you need to select an object. Here I'm selecting this cube. Then choose the bisect tool. It will create a cut along the line you define. If you don't want to see the outer or inner parts of the cube after the cut, there are options in the tool menu. Press N on your keyboard for upper right menu or access the menu from the lower part of the screen. You can then use the Clear Inner or Clear Outer options to remove the unwanted sections. The other option is Fill. So how it works. Now if I select this object, and then bisect this one, let's bisect a small portion of it like this. And then you see that it shows a hole and you can see inside the cube. But if you tick the fill option in and Control Z to come to original shape, and then select this object, select bisect. And now you click and cut a small portion of it. Then you see it is filled. Remember, this fill option is working with simple and small surfaces. If the cut area is complicated, then the fill option will not work and it cannot fill that area. The next option is Polybuild. It's a powerful tool that allows you to easily create, edit, and shape mesh geometry by adding and moving vertices, edges, and faces. It's especially useful for quickly building low-poly models and filling gaps in your design. So, how does it work? If you hover over the tool, you'll see several shortcut options. Control left mouse, and Shift left mouse. Using Control left mouse, you can add geometry. For example, if I see the edges of this cube and then use the Polybuild tool, it adds new edges. Once done, I can press Ctrl Z to undo the changes. If I select the left mouse option, it will extrude. For example, it extrudes the selected surface, and I can continue extruding other surfaces in the same way. However, if I use Shift left mouse, it will delete the selected area. For example, by pressing Shift and left clicking, the selected part is deleted. As you can see, using Shift left mouse removes the selected geometry. The next option is Spin. This tool is used to create circular or spiral geometry by duplicating and rotating mesh elements around a specific axis and pivot point. It is commonly used for objects with radial symmetry, such as wheels, screws, or bowls. For example, I'll move the 3D cursor to a new position, then select the Spin tool. Next, I select a surface of the cube. To rotate this surface around the x-axis, I click on the plus point of the red X line. As you can see, when I move it, the surface rotates around the selected axis. I press Ctrl Z to revert to the original shape. Now, if I select the entire cube and then use the Spin tool to rotate it around the x-axis, you'll see that the whole object rotates around the selected axis. You can also rotate it around the y-axis or the z-axis by selecting the corresponding axis. If you tick the duplicate option, it creates separate copies at each step of the spin. You can observe the difference by toggling the duplicate option on and off. I want to remove this object. Switch to Object Mode, select the entire object, and press Delete on your keyboard. Next, press Shift-S to bring the 3D cursor back to its original position at the center of the axes. The cursor will now be centered. Now, add a new cube. Once the cube is added, switch back to Edit mode. The next option is Smooth. To demonstrate smoothness, let's first select the object and subdivide it to create multiple divisions within the cube. Depending on the shape of the object, this tool will smooth out all corners and edges. After subdividing, select the item, apply the Smooth tool, and then adjust the smoothness. You can move the yellow handle directly from Object or increase/decrease the smoothing value using the small menu located at the bottom of the screen. You can also control how many times the smoothing should be repeated. Additionally, you can specify whether the smoothing should only apply along the y-axis, z-axis, or x-axis, depending on your preference. The effect will vary based on the shape of the object you're working with. Next, we have the Randomize option. To use this, select the object, I'll select the entire object, and then choose Randomize. You can adjust the randomization by either dragging the yellow handle on the object or by changing values in the menu located at the bottom of the screen. You can modify parameters such as the amount and uniformity to observe how the object changes. The next option is Edge Slide and Vertex Slide. To demonstrate this clearly, I'll first remove the current model by pressing Delete, then add a UV sphere, and switch back to Edit mode. Now let's see how Edge Slide works. When you select an edge or a loop around the sphere and move it, the shape of the sphere does not change. This tool helps adjust edge positions while preserving the overall shape, making it useful for refining and optimizing geometry. For example, I can select a loop and press G to move it slightly up or down. This movement won't significantly alter the shape of the object. You can also adjust the position using the menu at the bottom of the screen. As you can see, the loop slides along the surface of the sphere without changing its overall shape. Another option is Vertex Slide, which allows you to slide a vertex over the surface of the sphere without affecting its shape. First, select a vertex, and then you can move it up or down as needed. This adjustment won't significantly change the shape of the object. For example, if I select another vertex and move it up or down, it will slide smoothly along the surface of the sphere. This is useful for sliding loops and vertices across a surface without altering the overall shape of the object. Remember, if you press Alt and want to select an entire loop but can't, it might be because the Emulate 3-button mouse option is enabled in the preferences. If this option is active, you won't be able to select loops using Alt left-click. To fix this, go to Edit Preferences, untick Emulate 3-button mouse, close the window, and then you'll be able to select the entire loop with Alt left-click. The next option is Shrink Fatten, which includes two modes, Shrink Fatten and Push-Pull. To clearly demonstrate these options, I am using a torus for this example. First, I select Shrink Fatten and press Ctrl-Alt to select a ring on the torus. You can then adjust the size by dragging the yellow handle or by changing the value in the menu at the bottom of the screen. This will shrink or fatten the object depending on the value you set. Now if I select Push-Pull, I need to adjust the pivot point because this tool works based on the pivot. In this example, I set the pivot to the 3D cursor, which is located at the center of the axes. With the ring still selected, I can increase or decrease the distance of the ring from the 3D cursor. By switching between Shrink Fatten and Push-Pull, you can observe the difference in how the ring moves and deforms the torus. The next tool is Shear, which has two options, Shear and To Sphere. First, let's talk about To Sphere. I'll select an object and subdivide the cube into several parts. Once it is subdivided, I select the cube and apply the To Sphere option. Based on the selected points, Blender will attempt to transform the shape into a sphere. The more points you have selected, the more closely it resembles a spherical shape. Next, let's look at the Shear option. To demonstrate this, I'll first delete the current object and add a new cube. Now I want to extrude a surface slightly. First, I select the surface and extrude it a little. Next, I want to rotate or tilt the surface to the left or right without changing the thickness or width of the object. For this, I will use the Shear tool. As you can see, the tool displays handles. Using these handles, You can turn the surface in any direction you want. For example, if you input -1, it will rotate by 45 degrees. You can also extrude again, press Y, and the surface will rotate along the Y-axis. If you observe the object now, the thickness has remained unchanged, especially at the corners. This technique is useful for creating structures like pipes or similar objects, where you want to adjust the shape at corners without altering the object's width or thickness. The last option is Rip, which has two modes, Rip Region and Rip Edge. When you hold down the tool icon with the left mouse button, these options are displayed. First, let's look at Rip Region. For example, you can select any vertex within a cube and move it to open or reshape the object. This tool is typically used for splitting or reshaping geometry. You can also adjust the rip values from the menu at the bottom of the screen. Additionally, you can use the shortcut V on your keyboard to activate the Rip tool and modify the object. Next is Rip Edge. If you select an edge, for example, I'll select this edge, and press V, you can split or rip the edge, creating an opening in the object. Just like Rip Region, you can further modify the movement using the menu at the bottom of the screen. As you adjust the values, the changes are clearly visible on the object. I didn't use many shortcuts, but if you want to use them, simply hover over the tools and their shortcuts will be displayed. For example, the shortcut for inset faces is I. For bevel, it's Ctrl-B. For knife, it's K, and so on. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'll have more content in future videos. Thank you, and bye.